Imagine waking to a night that feels soft instead of sharp. Imagine the weight you have learned to carry slipping like warm sand through your fingers. Breathe in that idea for a moment. Breathe out and feel the small ease that follows. You are here because some nights your chest tightens with other people's storms, because some mornings your jaw remembers conversations that no longer serve you, because your attention is a map of obligations and echoes rather than a home. This is not about pretending everything is fine. This is about learning a skill, a somatic craft, a way to return to presence when the world asks you to be everything for everyone and forgets you are someone with a nervous system that deserves tenderness. Before we go further, make a quiet promise to yourself. Say, out loud or in the secret of your mind, I will practice releasing what I cannot control. Hold that promise like a small flame. Now, settle into a posture that feels soft and stable. Feel the points of contact between your body and the surface beneath you, the gentle give of fabric against skin, the temperature at your forearms, the faint hum of the room. Take 3 slow breaths, noticing the ribs expand to the sides, the subtle coolness of the inhale at the nostrils, the warm release at the exhale. Today, you will be guided through 3 parts. First, we will recognize how you take on what is not yours. Second, we will learn a boundary of compassion that keeps you tender and clear. Third, we will rehearse returning to your center with practical tools drawn from Buddhist practice and modern understanding of the nervous system. This is a practice of presence, not a promise of immediate perfection. Respire, accept, let go. The tone from this moment on is unhurried and gentle. You are invited to rest into the practice and let it work slowly. You know the pattern because you have lived it. A message that arrives late, a request that sounds like a plea, a replay of a slight that was never addressed, and your mind becomes the theater for someone else. You feel responsibility as if it were a garment stitched to your ribs. You replay what you could have said, you anticipate possible futures where you fail to save someone from their distress. You offer logic, apology, and explanation, as if those could rearrange another heart. How often have you lain awake rehearsing lines, feeling your stomach sink into a place that remembers old losses, counting the ways you might have been kinder if only you had known sooner? These are familiar scenes, cinematic and intimate. You hear the refrigerator hum, and it becomes a metronome for worry. You taste coffee that you did not ask for, and it feels like a trade. You touch your phone and feel the electric pull like a wire tugging your collar. You remember your father stepping back the night he should have stepped closer, the smell of his coat hanging in the hallway, the impression of cloth on your cheek when you were small. You picture a colleague at work whose anger you have tried to soothe, the rasp in their voice like wind over gravel, the small tremor under their words. You feel your chest weight change shape, like holding a stone in one hand and a feather in the other. The wound is both private and social. It arises from empathy without boundary, from compassion that forgets itself. You are not broken. You are human and deeply wired to connect, sometimes to the point of enmeshment. Recognizing this pattern is the first compassionate step. You do not have to be ashamed of how much you care. You do have to learn skillful means so your care does not become your cage. There is a method that is quiet and practical. It begins with a simple breathing anchor, a practice that calms the nervous system enough to let clarity arrive. It asks you to name, to feel, and to offer back. It will not fix everything overnight, but it will create a margin for choice. Place a hand on your belly and another on your heart. Inhale for 4 counts, noticing the coolness on the upper lip. Hold a soft pause for 2 counts, opening the channel of attention between body and mind. Exhale for 6 counts, noticing the warmth leaving the nostrils. Repeat this pattern 5 times, like setting tent pegs for shelter. With each cycle, allow your shoulders to drop a little, the jaw to soften, the tongue to unclench. Then, when thought arises, as it will, invite it nearer with curiosity, not with urgency. Name it simply: anger, worry, guilt, longing. Notice the texture of the naming. Is the word rough or smooth in your mouth? Does it carry sound or just a pressure in the chest? This naming is not labeling in order to judge. It is a way of locating what is happening so that you can decide what to do with it. You will practice 3 steps. Anchor, name, offer. Anchor with breath. Name with clarity. Offer what you cannot hold back to the openness that is not yours to fix. Say in your mind, I offer this up. I will stay kind and keep my boundary. Repeat that sentence quietly as a promise and a practice. If you can, place your intention into the evening so that the nervous system has something to learn. This is the border guard of compassion, not its barricade. Imagine a small living room where a conversation becomes a lesson. The light is low, a cup of tea steams on the table, and outside, rain taps the window in a steady rhythm. You are there with a friend named Maya, who tends to take on other people's sorrow, with Arun, who is precise and calm, with Lena, who has recently left a relationship that confused compassion for obligation, with Thomas, who shows up with humor masking tiredness, with May, who names boundaries clearly, with Javier, who asks questions like keys, and with Priya, who practices breathing every morning. In this scene, you speak with Maya about the night she carried her sister's guilt and became the audience for a story that was not hers. The conversation unwinds like the voice between you. Maya says, I feel like I am always cleaning up messes I didn't make. You answer, how does that feel in your body right now? Maya, my stomach clenches, my palms sweat, and my voice gets thin. Arun asks, when did it start to feel like your responsibility? Maya replies, I remember trying to fix my mother's sadness when I was 8, and she told me not to tell anyone. Lena says, that secrecy plants a seed. Thomas jokes softly, so childhood strikes again. Maya, I think I am afraid of being abandoned if I do not hold everything. You, and what would happen if you let something go? Maya, I do not know. May, maybe you would still be loved. Javier, what is the smallest thing you could release tonight? Priya, could we breathe together and try? You, let us do it now. This dialogue is not an interrogation. It is a shared practice, a mirror held gently. The sensory scene is rich. You smell lemon from the tea. You hear rain against the glass. You feel the rough texture of the couch beneath your fingertips. You notice the coolness in the room where the window is cracked. You taste the tannin on the tongue from the tea. You remember a song that played when you were young. Each of these small sensations roots you when the mind wants to fly away. In this scene, each person responds differently. Maya learns something about the smallness of release. Arun offers a breathing cadence. Lena sits in silence and lets a tear chart its course. Thomas places a hand on Maya's shoulder, warm and brief. May models a short no. Javier laughs softly and then listens. Priya leads the breathing. The exchange has more than 10 turns, each turn a small step in learning how compassion and boundary can live together. Now the meditation begins in earnest. We will practice Samatha, an anchor of breath that gently steadies attention. Find a posture that supports you. Allow the spine to be long and kind. Set a timer for 10 minutes if you wish. Begin with 3 full breaths, inhaling into the belly and exhaling from the heart. Sense the contact points of your feet or hips or the subtle pressure under your shoulders. Hear the ambient sounds as if they are waves moving around you, not through you. Smell the air, maybe a trace of soap, maybe the distant scent of rain, maybe no scent at all. Taste the space behind the teeth. Allow the bones to be heavy and the skin to remain awake. As thoughts arise, notice them as clouds and return to the breath without scolding. On the first inhale, feel the chest expand like a small sail. On the second, feel the ribs widen to the sides like soft wings. On the third, observe any tightening at the throat and let it loosen. Count the breath cycle slowly up to 5 and return to 1 when you reach the end. If an emotion appears, place your hand where it is felt and breathe into that place for 3 full cycles. This procedural guidance is precise so your nervous system can learn sequence. Keep the voice in your head gentle and steady. After 5 minutes, introduce a subtle practice of offering. Imagine a person whose burden you have been quietly carrying floating before you like a kite. See the string in your hand and notice its tension. Breathe in, feel the tension. Breathe out and release a little of the string until there is slack. Offer the kite to the sky, acknowledging that you can love and still let the string go. Return your hand to your lap. Repeat 5 times. These steps form a scaffold that helps you return to center when the world tries to pull you apart. Non-attachment is not coldness. Picture a kite in a blue afternoon. You control the string enough to keep it from crashing, but you do not own the wind. Non-attachment is the art of holding with enough hands to be kind, but not so tight that life stops breathing. Consider the analogy of a bowl with cracks. You hold the bowl because you love its presence, but you do not insist it never break. When it does, you do not carry shame. You notice and repair with simple materials, perhaps even embracing the cracks as lines of history. Ask yourself, where in my life am I holding the bowl too tightly? Is it in relationships where you fix rather than listen? Is it in work where outcomes define self-worth? Is it in friendships where silence is filled by your attempts to manage feelings? The thread you feel is often the remnant of a time when you had to be everything to survive. Trace it back without blame. Name where the thread began in your life, and notice the texture. Is it rough like burlap, fine like wire, elastic like an old band? By noticing the thread, you begin to choose whether to keep knitting it into your identity or to let it dissolve. Consider the question, what would compassion look like if it had a border? Imagine offering care, but not taking on responsibility for the other person's internal weather. Let your answers be practical. Maybe it means you say no to a late-night call that drains you. Maybe it means you practice sitting with someone without trying to fix. Maybe it means sending a text that says, "I hear you," and then caring for yourself afterward. These concrete shifts, small gestures that teach your nervous system new possibility. Presence over performance. Softness over compliance. You can be both kind and whole. There are echoes that will not leave quietly. Guilt arrives like a tap on the window at 2 in the morning. Regret loops like a song. Impermanence is the frame through which all of this becomes workable. It is not an idea to be argued with. It is an observation. Emotions rise and pass. Moments are not permanent tenants. You can learn to be a hospitable host to feelings without making them your home. To illustrate, I will tell you a short life story so you can see how these threads formed in one life and how practice can gently rearrange habit. I was a child who learned to be the keeper of other people's moods. My mother worked long hours and brought home the weight of the day like heavy shopping bags. The house smelled of tea and old books. I learned to move quietly so as not to make the air worse. In adolescence, I became the responsible one, the fixer, the friend who never asked for help. I studied, I taught myself to breathe in specific ways, and I started meditation as a place to rest. In my 20s, a relationship dissolved because I mistook attention for love. There was a long period of waking up each night convinced I had failed. Over time, with teachers, with small rituals, and with breath practice, the nights softened. The memory of being small and quiet remained as a tenderness, but it no longer controlled my decisions. At present, I still feel the tug sometimes. When it happens, I return to breath and to a simple offering phrase. This backstory is not unique. It is a mirror for many. The smell of tea, the fabric of habit, the quiet resolution to practice are sensory anchors you can use too. There are moments that rise like storms and demand careful attention. One such moment is the late-night call from someone in distress that arrives when you are already exhausted. The ringtone is sharp in the quiet kitchen. You smell the toast you never finished. Your heart races as if it must contain both your exhaustion and their need. You feel a pressure behind the sternum. In this space, breathe slowly and notice the edges of your capacity. Say gently, "I can listen, but I cannot carry this alone right now." Offer a concrete option instead, perhaps a space to speak tomorrow or a suggestion for immediate crisis support. This preserves compassion without becoming enmeshment. Another tension arises in a workplace meeting when a colleague deflects blame. The room is fluorescent and thin coffee lingers. Your hands find the pen and your throat tightens. You want to defend, to smooth, to apologize for things you did not do. Pause, breathe, name the emotion, and respond with a sentence that keeps your center. For example, "I hear your concern."
Here is what I observed. This is a practice of clarity that protects you from being pulled into fixing what is not yours. A third moment is the memory that returns in the evening, a replay of a conversation where you said nothing and later asked why you were silent. The lamp is low, the quilt warm, and your teeth taste like the orange you ate earlier. The memory arrives heavy and insistent. Soften the body, breathe into the place where the memory is felt, and say, "I did what I could then with what I knew." Offer kindness to the child inside you who tried. Each of these tension moments is an opportunity to practice returning to presence instead of reacting on autopilot. You will need skillful means to carry this practice into life. Upaya, or skillful methods, are small habits you can adopt so practice does not remain only in meditation. Begin with micro-habits. 3 simple micro-habits are a short breath check at transitions, a verbal boundary that is compassionate and specific, and a nightly offering ritual. The breath check is a 2-count inhale and a 4-count exhale before answering a work email that looks like it might trigger you. It recalibrates your sympathetic activation. The verbal boundary might be, "I want to support you and I can do that during weekday afternoons," which sets a frame without cutting off care. The nightly offering ritual is brief and can be done in bed. Place both hands on your heart and say, "I offer back what is not mine and keep what is within my care." These are small actions with big cumulative effects. Now let us engage a moment of tension in a dialogue to practice skillful means live. There is a short conversation between you and a sibling named Noah about a family event that feels like an old fault line. Noah says, "Why didn't you say something then?" You say, "I thought it would make it worse." Noah, "You always think about consequences more than truth." You, "I know that." Noah, "So you are still avoiding." You, "I am not avoiding now." Noah, "Then why does it feel like you are distant?" You, "I am here and I am learning to speak differently." Noah, "Learning takes time." You, "I know." Noah, "Will you come to the dinner?" You, "I will, but I will leave if it becomes harmful." Noah, "That sounds reasonable." You, "Thank you for asking." Noah, "I appreciate you trying." This exchange moves through frustration, accusation, boundary, and an attempt at mutual understanding. It includes 7 turns and models how breathing, naming, and a clear offer can change the shape of relatedness. Notice the tactile details. The kitchen smells of citrus, the chair edge presses into the thigh, the light above the table has a faint flicker, the tea steam cools on the table, the sound of the street reaches the window as a low hum. These sensorial anchors keep you grounded in the moment. Technical notes for practice are useful to have written plainly. For the breathing anchor, use a 4-2-6 pattern. Inhale for 4 counts through the nose, hold softly for 2 counts, exhale for 6 counts through the mouth or nose. Perform this cycle 5 to 10 times to shift toward parasympathetic activation. Use a timer to avoid checking the clock, which resets vigilance. If your mind wanders, return without judgment. When naming strong emotions, keep the labels simple and brief, such as anger, fear, or grief, to avoid fueling narratives. Offer the emotion outward with a short phrase like, "I offer this," which engages the parasympathetic response by changing your relationship to the feeling. These procedural cues are small but precise. Keep them accessible and repeatable. Now return to a longer exploration of impermanence and the echo of past decisions. The past holds a grammar of what you learned to do to be safe. Sometimes those grammatical rules become the way you speak in relationships, leading you to pick up burdens by default. Recognizing the grammar lets you recompose sentences differently. Remember that every relationship is seasonal. Trees hold their leaves and then let them go. The bark remains respectful of what has passed. You can practice the same stance with feelings and roles. If regret returns, treat it like a weather report rather than a mandate. If shame rises, tenderly place a hand where it is felt and breathe. Consider the simple practice of naming the beginning, middle, and end of a feeling when it arises. For example, when anxiety appears, say silently, "Beginning, middle, end." Notice how this creates a rhythm and shifts your identification away from the emotion as permanent truth. In the practice of returning to breath, you are essentially training attention to remain the observer rather than the gardener who insists on pruning everyone else's plants.
You remain kind to others and to yourself. There are times when compassion requires action and times when it requires restraint. Being skillful with others does not mean you are unfeeling. It means you use attention to choose appropriate care. When facing hard conversations, prepare by noticing your edges. Practice a 3-sentence script that keeps your presence. Sentence 1 names the observation. Sentence 2 names your experience. Sentence 3 offers a limit or a next step. Example: I noticed you were late to the meeting. I feel frustrated because the timeline tightened. I can support rectifying this by staying an extra hour, or we can reschedule. This pattern keeps you accountable and prevents you from becoming the default repair person for others' errors. Small practices like this rewire your interactions. They make compassion sustainable. There are specific moments of intensity that demand slow attention. One is the morning when you open an email that triggers ancient fear and your breath stops. The light at the desk is harsh, the keyboard cool under your fingertips, and the coffee has gone too cold. Pause.
Close your eyes if you can. Place the hand on the sternum and count 4 breaths. Repeat your offering phrase, I offer what is not mine. Send the email into draft and wait until your nervous system settles to respond. Another intense moment is when a friend dissolves into you with their grief, and you feel yourself wanting to own their pain so they will stop. The room smells of rain, your shirt is damp with nervous sweat, your knees press into the carpet. Sit with the impulse and let 10 slow breaths pass. Offer to stay with them for 20 minutes, and then set a transition that allows you to rest. A third tense episode is years-old memory that returns not as news but as a current. You wake in the middle of the night and the memory is vivid. The floorboard creaks in exactly the same way. Take a slow shower if you can, or place a cool cloth at the back of your neck and say to yourself, I did what I could with what I had. These practices train the body to be your ally in moments when the mind wants to rescue, fix, or control. We have named many people in these pages because relating is the place where practice is tested. Maya, Arun, Lena, Thomas, May, Javier, Priya, Noah, and others are not just characters but mirrors of parts of you. Notice how each person reflects a way that compassion can both bind and free. Maya models the tendency to take on. Arun models calm steadiness that does not become indifferent. Lena shows the courage of leaving when staying has been self-sacrificing. Thomas reminds you that humor can be both shield and gift. May is the voice of gentle no. Javier is the curious questioner. Priya is the daily practitioner who shows how repetition changes neural pathways. Noah is the sibling who asks for honesty and the risk that comes with it. Allow their different voices to inform your own practice. Let Maya teach you where you overextend. Let May be your model when you need to say no. Let Priya remind you that practice is revision over time. These relationships provide sensory cues you can use to anchor return to presence. As we come toward the close, imagine how this practice might change things in time. In 1 month, you will notice small contractions loosening. You might sleep a few uninterrupted hours. The body will remember the breath pattern and it will ask less for adrenaline. You will be able to answer a late text with a boundary and feel okay with the outcome. In 3 months, your reactions will slow more noticeably. You may find yourself responding from a calm center in conversations that once drained you. Old loops will be shorter. People around you may comment that you seem steadier, and you will feel less surprised by your own shift. In 6 months, you will recognize deeper changes. Your habitual identity as the fixer will be softening. You will find that care can be offered without total collapse, that love does not require sacrifice as proof, that your nervous system has learned a different grammar. You will have developed rituals that anchor you in practice, perhaps 5-minute breath checks that punctuate your day, or short, compassionate boundaries that prevent enmeshment. The epilogue of practice is not perfection. It is a lessening of reactivity, a clearer capacity to be present, and a trust that you can meet life with both softness and firmness. If this practice touched you, know you are not alone. Many carry burdens they need not hold, and many learn to release with courage. If you feel moved, pause now, and if you are comfortable, type in the comments the sentence, I release, followed by a single word that names which you want to let go. Maybe it is guilt, maybe it is obligation, maybe it is a need to fix. Sharing this one word can create a field of solidarity. Others may read it in the night and feel less solitary. Community is not a cure, but it is an anchor for practice. When you post, imagine someone in another city reading your one word and taking a breath. Help build a gentle web of practice. After you share, return here and continue. We will keep practicing with the breath as our steady friend. If you want to continue receiving guidance, consider subscribing. This channel brings together teachings from contemplative traditions and modern understanding of the nervous system in a simple, practical way. It is a place to learn slowly, without pressure, with others who are trying to be kinder to themselves. Before we finish, let us rehearse a short closing sequence to repeat nightly. First, anchor with 3 full breaths using the 4-2-6 pattern. Second, name one feeling that visited today. Third, offer it with the phrase, "I offer this back with compassion." Fourth, set a small boundary for rest. For example, "I will sleep and return to this at midday." Fifth, place both hands lightly over the heart and feel 3 slow pulses under your fingers. These 5 steps can take 3 to 5 minutes and will create neurobiological memory. In the coming month, notice small changes. In 3 months, notice shifts in response patterns. In 6 months, notice a new ease that feels like a stranger who grew into a friend. If you want to continue, subscribe and return. If you feel called to share, leave that single word in the comments. Now, before you close your eyes, take one final long breath, feel the air fill, and then release it all the way out. Rest into the soft knowledge that you have skills to return to, that impermanence is a companion, and that compassion with boundary is both possible and kind. Sleep knowing that presence is practice, and that each night you practice, you come home a little more. Good night.